The message arrived on an ordinary Thursday evening, the kind of evening where life feels predictably dull soft rain against the windows, the hum of the refrigerator, the lonely click of my knitting needles. I remember thinking, just moments before, how peaceful everything felt. Funny how peace always seems to settle right before a storm tears it apart. My phone chimed with a cheerful ding, and I smiled without thinking. For the past month, most of my notifications had been related to the wedding final dress fittings, seating charts, catering invoices. Each message felt like a thread tying me closer to Marissa again. After years of strained conversations and hollow exchanges, this wedding was supposed to be our second chance. I should have known better. I reached for the phone, expecting a picture of the centerpiece she'd finally chosen, or a question about which shade of ivory looked more elegant. Instead, my entire world shrank into one single, merciless line. Asterisk asterisk, don't come to my wedding. You're no longer my family. Asterisk asterisk at first. I didn't even understand the words. My mind read them, but my heart refused to accept them. I stared, dumbfounded, convinced that maybe she meant something else, maybe it was a joke. Maybe someone had taken her phone. Maybe she'd meant to send it to someone else. But her name was there. Asterisk asterisk, Marissa read asterisk asterisk, the little heart I'd added years ago, back when she still hugged me without reservation, back when I was the center of her world. A cold quake moved through me, starting in my chest, rippling outward until even my fingertips trembled. Phone slipped slightly in my grip, and I steadied it with both hands. My eyes burned, my throat tightened. The room felt suddenly hollow. For a moment I forgot how to breathe. I read the message again and again, as if repetition would somehow soften it, but it stayed brutal, final, like a slammed door echoing in an empty hallway. I thought of her as a baby, the tiny fists, the milk, drunk expressions, the way she used to curl into my chest like she belonged there. I thought of her as a child, the scraped knees, the school projects, the nights I stayed up sewing costumes for her dance recitals. I thought of the first time she said, "I hate you," at 13, and how I'd laughed because I knew she didn't mean it. But this wasn't a teenage tantrum. This was something else entirely. This was severed blood, a rejection deep enough to bruise the soul. My first instinct was to call her, then to drive to her apartment, then to write a long message asking what had happened, what I'd done wrong, why she would say something so cruel. But another part of me, older, wiser, exhausted, stopped me, because I already knew where this was coming from. Greg, her father, had always known how to twist her emotionally, subtly, expertly. When we divorced, he weaponized his charm with surgical precision. He fed her stories, half-truths, polished lies, all crafted to erode her trust in me while making himself the hero. I used to think that eventually she'd see through it, but manipulation, as gentle as Greg's, almost loving in tone, was the most dangerous kind. Over the years, piece by piece, he carved himself deeper into her loyalty and pushed me out, and I let him. Because I didn't want to force her to choose. I didn't want to be the mother who tore her child in half. But maybe avoiding the fight meant losing the war entirely. A fresh tear slipped down my cheek as I typed the simplest response possible, one that hurt to write more than any paragraph could have. Asterisk asterisk, understood. Asterisk asterisk, I pressed send. The silence afterward was deafening. I set the phone down on the kitchen counter, as if setting it down might somehow put mental distance between me and the words. But the message sat in my mind like a knife lodged in bone. I paced the kitchen, my breath uneven, my thoughts loud enough to drown out everything else. Every step felt heavier than the last. Every memory of her, from her first steps to her high school graduation, crashed over me like a tide determined to drag me under. I tried to make tea, but my hands shook too much. I tried to sit, but my legs couldn't stop moving. I tried to pretend this was a nightmare, but the dull ache in my chest made it unbearably real. And then, somewhere between despair and numbness, something inside me hardened, not anger, not bitterness, just a quiet, exhausted resolve. A voice whispered inside me, small but steady, asterisk asterisk enough. Asterisk asterisk enough being blamed for things I didn't do. Enough being treated like a villain in my own story. Enough letting Greg pull the strings of my relationship with my daughter. Enough sacrificing myself in silence. I picked up the phone again, not to message Marissa, not to fix anything, but to call the one person who had known the truth long before anyone else, the one person who had always stood by me, even from afar. My brother, Daniel. We hadn't spoken properly in years, not because of any fight, but because I'd grown accustomed to carrying my burdens alone. But Daniel always saw through me. Even when we were kids, he'd shielded me from our parents' arguments. He understood the shadows people cast behind their smiles. When he answered, his voice was groggy and hoarse. It's late, everything all right? I opened my mouth, but for a beat nothing came out. My throat constricted, and all the pain I'd tried to swallow punched its way upward. I need you, I whispered. I think I really need you. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't demand explanations. His voice sharpened instantly. Say no more. I'm on it. Asterisk on what? Asterisk, I almost asked, but I didn't have the strength. I hung up and sank onto the couch, my body trembling with the weight of everything unspoken. I hugged the throw pillow to my chest, trying to quiet the storm inside me, and somewhere, deep down, a strange feeling flickered. Uncertain, fragile, not hope, but the faintest sense that something had shifted, that maybe, just maybe, this breaking point was the beginning of something else, something that would change everything. I woke to the sound of silence. Not peaceful silence, this was the heavy, unnatural quiet that hangs over a room after a night of crying. My eyes felt swollen, the kind of swollen that told me I'd shed tears even in my sleep. My neck ached from falling asleep on the couch, still clutching the throw blanket like a life raft. For a moment, I lay there without moving, suspended in the strange fog between dreams and waking life, and then the memory of last night hit me with full force. Her message, those 5 devastating words, the finality of "you're no longer my family." I sat up slowly, each movement stiff and reluctant, as though my body didn't want to fully rejoin the world. Morning light spilled across the carpet in soft gold lines. Outside, birds were chirping, oblivious, indifferent. Life went on, uncaring of heartbreak. It wasn't until I reached for my phone to check the time that everything shifted. Asterisk asterisk 83 missed calls. Asterisk asterisk I froze. For a few seconds, my brain couldn't process the number on the screen. I blinked hard, once, twice. Surely I was still dreaming, but no. The list was real. The chaos was real. Marissa, 20 missed calls, Greg. 10 missed calls, unknown numbers. 19 missed calls, my sister. 7 missed calls, the groom's mother. 4 missed calls, the groom. 3 missed calls, aunts, cousins, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. My thumb hovered above the screen as dread pooled low in my stomach. What on earth? I whispered to the empty room. Before I could tap anything, my phone started buzzing again, loud, insistent, almost angry. Asterisk asterisk my sister calling. Asterisk asterisk I hesitated, then swiped to answer. Elena. Finally, she barked. What did you do? What on earth did you let Daniel do? I blinked. What are you talking about? Are you kidding me? She snapped, her voice shrill. Have you not checked the family forum? Daniel posted everything. A cold shiver slid down my spine. Posted what? My voice came out small. Oh my God, she groaned. Check it. Check it right now. She didn't wait for my response. She hung up, leaving the sharp click ringing in my ear. Hands trembling, I opened the private forum. Our sprawling family's digital living room, where people shared birthdays, arguments, gossip, and passive-aggressive comments disguised as jokes. At the top of the page, pinned with a glaring red exclamation mark, was a post by Daniel, asterisk asterisk, truth about Greg and what he did to my sister. Asterisk asterisk, I felt my stomach drop. With a pounding heart, I clicked it open, and then I saw it all. Asterisk asterisk, screenshots. Documents, recordings, years of hidden truth, laid bare. Asterisk asterisk, a wave of heat washed over me. Shame, fear, anger, disbelief. all tangled in one suffocating rush. There were screenshots of Greg's texts asking me for money for Marissa, but later, laughing to someone about how easy it was to guilt me. There were bank statements transfers I had made quietly, privately, now exposed. There were old emails where Greg manipulated our daughter, casting me as selfish, weak, unreasonable, and then the recording. My chest tightened as I hit play. Greg's voice poured out, smooth and smug, asterisk, Elena will keep paying as long as Marissa asks. The woman's too soft, and Marissa, she wants to please me. She'll choose whoever makes her life easier. Trust me, I know how to guide her. Asterisk, my hands curled into fists. My vision blurred with hot, humiliated tears. But Daniel hadn't stopped at betrayal. He included the reason our marriage ended. Real reason, the one I'd protected Marissa from for years. A reason involving lies, addiction, infidelity, and a financial disaster Greg had pinned on me. The comments section was exploding. Is this real? I can't believe Greg did this. Poor Elinas. How could Marissa turn her back after everything? This is unforgivable. My phone vibrated again. A new text popped up from Marissa. Asterisk, asterisk, Mom, please call me. I need to talk to you, please. Asterisk, asterisk, another. Asterisk, asterisk, why would Uncle Daniel do this? Did you know he was going to post it? Asterisk, asterisk, another. Asterisk, asterisk, please answer me. Asterisk, asterisk, I stared at the screen, my breath shaky. Something inside me, some small, buried piece, felt vindicated, not happy, not triumphant, just relieved the truth was finally no longer mine to hide. Then the phone rang once more. Asterisk, asterisk, Greg. Asterisk, asterisk, I let it ring. Then it rang again. Another unknown number and another. People who had judged me for years were suddenly desperate to reach me. I set the phone face down on the table, the vibrations making it dance across the wood like a frantic insect. A strange calm settled over me, the kind that comes just after a storm breaks the sky in half. I walked to the kitchen window and stared at the gentle drizzle outside. The world looked oddly peaceful compared to the firestorm inside my phone. This wasn't my doing. This wasn't my chaos. For the first time in years, I wasn't cleaning up someone else's mess. I hadn't exposed Greg. I hadn't defended myself. I hadn't even spoken. I had simply said one word, asterisk, asterisk, understood. Asterisk, asterisk, and Daniel had understood exactly what I didn't say. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know what Marissa would say. I didn't know if this would tear us further apart, or finally force the truth into the open. But I knew this. Nothing would ever be the same again. The wedding day arrived like a bruised dark around the edges, swollen with everything unspoken. The sky was gray, restless, a storm waiting to happen. I wasn't invited, but I went anyway, not because I wanted to ruin anything, not because I wanted revenge, but because something inside me whispered, asterisk, asterisk, you deserve to be seen. Asterisk, asterisk, for 25 years I had been the quiet one, the fixer, the apologizer, the peacekeeper, the one who absorbed the blows so my daughter wouldn't have to feel them, the one who carried the weight of the truth alone. Not today. I dressed carefully, not in black, though the irony tempted me. Instead, I chose a soft blue dress, simple, graceful, not attention-seeking. I curled my hair and applied light makeup, not to impress anyone, but because I wanted to look like myself again. The woman I used to be before Greg, before the lies. When I arrived at the venue, a garden decorated with white roses and gold-trimmed chairs. A hush rippled through the crowd. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Eyes darted toward me, whispering behind manicured fingers. That's her, the mother. Did you see the post? Poor woman. For once, I didn't shrink from their stares. Let them look. Let them wonder. The groom's mother, Linda, broke through the clusters of guests and hurried toward me. Her face was tight with concern. Elena, I'm so relieved you're here. She lowered her voice. I'm so sorry. We didn't know about any of it. I offered her a tired smile. You couldn't have known. Greg has always been charming. Her expression twisted bitterly. Charming men are the worst kinds of monsters. Before I could answer, an angry voice sliced through the murmurs. Mom. I turned. Marissa stood at the end of the walkway, her wedding dress trailing behind her like a cloud. Her veil hung loosely, hair slightly undone. Not from wind, but from stress. Her eyes were red, swollen, the skin beneath them bruised with exhaustion. Seeing her like that punched the air from my lungs. My daughter, my baby, falling apart on what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. She walked toward me quickly, her breath uneven. "Why are you here?" She whispered, not with anger, but with fear, confusion, regret. I opened my mouth to answer, but before I could, she burst out. "Why didn't you tell me the truth? Why didn't you ever tell me what Dad did?" Her voice cracked on the last word. 100 guests pretended not to stare. I swallowed hard. My voice shook when I spoke. "Because you were young, Marissa, and I didn't want to destroy your relationship with your father. I didn't want you to grow up hating him because of my pain." She shook her head, tears spilling freely. "But he used me, Mom. He used me to hurt you. I let him. I believed him. I thought you were trying to control me, I thought." She choked on a sob. "I told you not to come. I said terrible things." Her knees buckled slightly, and I reached out instinctively, but she stepped back, guilt flickering across her face. The groom appeared behind her, Lucas, his expression tight, jaw clenched. "Elena," he said softly, "I'm glad you came. I know this is hard, but Marissa needs you." My daughter turned, eyes widening. "You're not mad?" "Mad?" Lucas scoffed gently at you. "No, at your father." His jaw tightened, very. And then, right on cue, Greg appeared. His face was red with rage, his tie crooked, eyes darting around, as if searching for an angle he could still twist in his favor. "What is going on?" he bellowed. "Why is she here? This is her fault. All of this." Gasps echoed. Some guests stepped back. I remained still, calm, untouched by his theatrics. Marissa turned slowly toward her father. "Is it true?" she whispered. "Did you really say those things about Mom? Use me to manipulate her? Lie about money?" Greg's face flickered, first panic, then irritation, then the slick charm he always relied on. "Sweetheart, listen. Your uncle edited those recordings. He's always hated me. This is a dad," she shouted, her voice shattering. "Just tell me the truth." He stepped forward. "Marissa, I have always put you first." "No, you haven't," she screamed, tears streaming. "You put your pride first. You put your wallet first. You put your lies first. Never me." For the first time in decades, Greg looked small. Exposed, like a man whose tricks had finally run out. Guests murmured, phones recorded, and still. I said nothing. The groom's father approached Greg with a thunderous expression. "You lied to us too. You told us Elena didn't contribute a cent to this wedding. You told us she abandoned you. You withheld information on your financial background during the marriage. This is unacceptable," Greg sputtered. "This is family business." "Not anymore," Lucas said firmly. "Not when you involved lies, money, and manipulation." Greg's voice rose again. "You," he snarled, pointing at me. "You're doing this. You're ruining everything." I lifted my chin. "No, Greg, I'm not doing anything. The truth is." A hush fell. For once, I didn't tremble when he looked at me. For once, he had no power here. The wedding planner nervously approached. Should we still proceed with the ceremony? All eyes fell on Marissa. Her breath hitched, her hands shook. She looked like a child lost in the woods. She glanced at Lucas. "I don't know." Lucas stepped closer, cupping her cheeks gently. "We don't have to do this today. Not like this. I love you, but you're hurting, and you deserve a day that isn't built on lies." Marissa broke. She sobbed into his chest, her white gown trembling with each breath. The ceremony was quietly canceled. Guests drifted away, speaking in low tones. Vendors packed up. Chairs were folded, flowers boxed, champagne poured down the grass. And through it all, I stood still, watching, breathing, existing, not erased, not vilified, not silent. When the last of the guests left, Marissa approached me again. Her voice was small. "Can we talk later, please?" I nodded. "Whenever you're ready." She hesitated, then whispered, "I'm sorry, Mom. It wasn't enough. Not yet." But it was a beginning. And beginnings, no matter how fragile, are powerful. As I walked back to my car, the clouds finally opened, releasing a gentle rain. Soft, cleansing, a baptism for everything that had come undone. The storm had passed, but the reckoning, the real reckoning, was only just beginning. The day after the wedding collapse, the garden still smelled faintly of wet roses. Petals had fallen onto the pavement, bruised by the rain, delicate and broken, the kind of beauty that mirrored my heart. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the remnants of my coffee, steam curling up like the threads of my tangled thoughts. The storm had passed, yes, but in its wake lingered the debris of betrayal, heartbreak, and shattered expectations. My phone vibrated. It was Marisa. No words, just a single message. Asterisk, asterisk. Can I come over? Asterisk, asterisk. I hesitated. The last time she'd come to my house uninvited. The world had been spinning on a knife edge. But this time I knew it wasn't about confrontation. Not really. It was about healing. Tentative, trembling, imperfect healing. I replied simply. Asterisk, asterisk. Yes. Asterisk, asterisk. An hour later, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, my daughter stood there. No makeup, no carefully styled hair. Just her, the girl I had nurtured, the young woman I had feared I'd lost forever. Eyes red and puffy but clear, brimming with an emotion I recognized instantly, remorse. "Mom," she whispered, and I felt my own throat tighten. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. She moved slowly, as though she feared every sound she made might shatter the fragile world around her. Once inside, she perched on the edge of the couch, twisting her hands together. Her wedding dress was long gone, folded carefully on a chair, but even in casual clothes, she looked fragile, exposed. I don't know where to start," she admitted. Her voice was hoarse. "I hated you. I told myself it was because you were controlling, because you were you. But I realize now." She swallowed hard. "I realize now that I hated the lies, the absence of truth. I hated how I didn't know. I hated being used." Her words hung in the air, heavy but cleansing. I moved closer, sitting beside her. "Marissa, you didn't know. You were a child, and you were manipulated. None of this is entirely your fault." Tears streamed down her face, and she let them fall freely now, without shame. The years of anger, confusion, and misplaced loyalty poured out in a raw, trembling flood. I reached for her hands and held them. "You were never alone, even when it felt like it." I said softly, "I've always been here. I'm still here." She looked at me, the vulnerability in her eyes breaking down every wall I thought had hardened in her heart. "I want to make things right," she whispered. "I don't know how, but I want to try, if you'll let me." The lump in my throat grew so large it almost stopped me from speaking. For so long, I had carried my own pain silently, protecting her from the world and, perhaps foolishly, from the truth. But now the truth was out. The lies were exposed, and finally we could face them together. "I want that too," I said. "We'll take it slow, no rushing, no expectations, just being honest with each other. That's how we'll start again." She nodded, relief mingling with lingering guilt. "I never stopped loving you, Mom, even when I thought I did." I smiled, my own tears threatening to fall. "I never stopped loving you either, and I never will." The hours passed. We talked, not about Greg. Not about blame, not about the wedding that never was. We talked about her life, her dreams, the things she was scared to share before. We laughed at small absurdities. We cried at old wounds. And somewhere in that conversation, the invisible thread connecting mother and daughter, frayed and nearly broken, started to mend. I realized something that day. The sweetest revenge wasn't in destruction or punishment. It wasn't in seeing Greg face the consequences, though he would eventually. The sweetest revenge was reclaiming my own life, my dignity, my voice, my love. And in that reclamation, I found a far greater victory than any court ruling, any public shame, any vindication through others' eyes. I found my daughter again. The storm had torn us apart, yes, but in its wake it also cleared the air. We could see the sky again. And this time we could choose to grow together instead of apart. Later, when the evening settled over the house like a comforting blanket, Marissa curled up beside me on the sofa, the same way she used to when she was small, when life felt too large to navigate. Alone, her head rested on my shoulder. I could feel her breath even out, her grip softened. "I love you, Mom," she murmured. "I love you more," I whispered back. Outside, the world was still imperfect. Greg's lies would have repercussions. Other family members would gossip, but none of that mattered here. In this small living room, with the soft glow of lamplight and the quiet hum of a world moving forward, something essential had been restored. Trust, love, family. The road ahead would be long. Healing would not be linear. There would be setbacks, arguments, and tears. But now we had something stronger than anger, stronger than resentment, stronger than the past itself. We had each other, and in that there was everything. I knew without doubt that this was the beginning of a new chapter, not one written by betrayal or manipulation, but by resilience, love, and the quiet power of truth. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. The storm had passed, and we had survived, together,